It was April 9th, 2025. This wasn't just another date on the NBA calendar. This wasn't just a player returning to face a former team. No, this was a reckoning. This was the night everything came full circle, and Luka Doncic knew it. Did you really think Luka's return to Dallas would be anything less than cinematic? From the moment he stepped on the court, you could feel it in the air. A strange feeling of nostalgia, regret, and electricity coming from Luka. This building once belonged to him. This organization believed in him. He was the chosen one. Luka was the person who made Dallas hopeful again. And yet, there he was, wearing purple and gold. This wasn't just personal for Luka. This was revenge, because the Dallas Mavericks didn't just trade away a superstar. They traded away their identity, their hope, their soul. And Luka Doncic, he came back to remind them of that mistake. Not with a press conference, not with tweets, but with a basketball performance so powerful, so surgical, so soul-crushing, it left the entire Mavericks front office gasping for answers. From the opening tip, he hunted them like prey. Every possession was a message. Every bucket was a receipt. He didn't scream. He didn't flex. He just exposed every flaw, every assumption, every decision that led to the moment he was traded away. It wasn't just about stats, although he went off. It wasn't about showboating, although the opposing crowd gave him multiple standing ovations. It was about humbling the front office, who believed they could move on without him. Nico Harrison, who orchestrated the deal, he watched helplessly. The fans who once chanted Luka's name, they were still cheering for him while also booing their own front office. On April 9th, 2025, Luka Doncic didn't just beat the Dallas Mavericks, he humbled them. And that humility, it came at the hands of the very player they thought they could live without. He didn't raise his voice, because his game said it all. Now, let's break down exactly how it happened. The American Airlines Center was electric, but not in the usual big game kind of way. This wasn't the buzz you get before a playoff matchup, and it wasn't the pregame tension of a close seeding race. No, this was different. This was the sound of a city holding its breath, a franchise seeing its former hero walk into their building wearing a different jersey, one that didn't say Dallas across the chest. The moment he stepped out for warm-ups, phones went up, eyes locked in. It was the kind of energy that can only come from someone who once meant everything to a city. And then came the tribute video. On the Jumbotron, Luka's legacy played out like a highlight reel of dreams. The rookie game winners, the 40-point playoff explosions, the magical Game 7s, the iconic grin after yet another no-look dime, the roar after that buzzer beater against the Clippers. It was all there, and as the crowd stood and applauded, the camera panned to Luka. He fought back tears, not out of sadness, but out of love for the city he thought he'd play his whole career with. He wiped his face with his jersey, nodding to the crowd. In that moment, the past and present collided. For a second, it felt like maybe this was all just a dream. Maybe he'd still come back. Maybe the trade never happened. But it had. And the next 48 minutes were about to be a reality check. Luka admitted that right after watching his tribute video, he said there's no way we were about to play in this game. So many moments, so many memories, and he just went out there and played basketball. But he didn't just play basketball. He turned that emotion, the grief, the gratitude, the betrayal, into fuel, into fire. The tears dried, the eyes sharpened, the posture changed. The tip-off came and Luka transformed from the emotional returnee into the relentless competitor. The kid who grew up in this building was now the one tearing it down, brick by brick, play by play. Because no matter how warm the welcome was, no matter how heartfelt the montage had been, Luka Doncic didn't come back for nostalgia. He came back to finish something. And once the ball was in play, the love turned to tension. The cheers faded into silence. Luka wasn't just home, he was hunting. From the moment the ball was tipped, Luka Doncic wasn't just playing, he was calculating. He wasn't out there to run through a playbook, he was reading Dallas like an open book. And with every page he turned, it became more obvious. They had no answer. Just minutes into the game, Luka Doncic made it clear he wasn't here for nostalgia, he was here to dominate. From the jump, he took control of the pace, orchestrating the offense like a conductor leading a symphony. Every movement was calculated. Every dribble, every fake, every glance, it all had purpose. Whether it was a smooth pull-up jumper or a methodical drive to the rim, Luka looked completely in command. And it wasn't just the scoring, he was dictating the game in every way, pushing in transition, drawing in defenders, and making the right read every time. Luka wasn't just playing basketball, he was making a statement, and Luka hadn't even broken a sweat. You could feel it, something special was brewing. Not because Luka was putting on a show, but because he was putting on surgical gloves. This wasn't entertainment, this was an operation. By the middle of the first quarter, it became clear that Dallas had no defensive scheme. They were just taking turns being victims. One-on-one coverage, Luka cooked. Soft traps, Luka split them. Drop coverage, that floater hit nothing but net. And the most ironic part, this Mavericks team, the one that traded Luka away in the name of defense, couldn't stop a nosebleed. Derek Lively, PJ Washington, Najee Marshall, even Anthony Davis, the crown jewel of the trade, got switched onto Luka and found himself staring down another step-back three. Splash. It wasn't loud, it wasn't flashy, but it was suffocating. By the end of the first quarter, Luka had 14. By halftime, it was 31. 31 points in 19 minutes, on 11 of 16 shooting and 6 of 8 from 3. All in front of the same front office that deemed him expendable. Every possession felt personal, and it wasn't just what Luka was doing, it was how easy he was making it look. No wasted motion, no forced plays, no mercy. The Mavericks came in with a defensive identity. Luka shredded it. They came in with a game plan. Luka set it on fire. And as halftime approached, fans weren't just watching a blowout, they were watching a reality check. Not only was this a dominant first half, it was a reminder that this move was one of the worst trades in NBA history. And Luka still had 2 quarters left. You'd think after a 31-point first half, Luka Doncic might ease off the gas. You'd be wrong, because Luka didn't come to Dallas for a feel-good reunion. He came to finish what Dallas started. In the second half, that's when it became something deeper than basketball. This wasn't just a return game anymore, it was a reckoning. As the third quarter began, the Mavericks looked shell-shocked. Their defensive scheme hadn't just failed, it had completely collapsed. There were no answers on the bench, no adjustments in the locker room, no second wind. And Luka knew it. So what did he do? He pressed harder. He baited switches on every possession, forced the Mavericks to isolate defenders, took his time, studied their feet, their spacing, then exploited it without hesitation. One moment he'd snake through a pick and roll, freeze a help defender with a hesitation dribble, and finish with a reverse layup. The next, he'd get defenders in ISO and hit step-back threes in their face. Effortless, efficient, deadly, and still no celebration, no reaction. Luka wasn't here for a highlight reel, he was here for accountability. The crowd that had cheered so loudly pregame now sat divided. Some still clapped, many sat in stunned silence, and a growing number of voices rose from the lower bowl. Fire Nico. Fire Nico. It wasn't a chant, it was a verdict. Nico Harrison, the architect of this disaster, sat courtside, stone-faced. There was nowhere to hide. Every possession, every Luka bucket felt like a spotlight shining directly on him. And Luka, he didn't need to point fingers, because every step-back three did it for him. He reached 40 points midway through the fourth quarter, and it wasn't some heat check prayer. No, it was a calculated, controlled paint touch, slicing through defenders for an easy 2. Even heading toward the final moments, it felt symbolic. No chest pounding, no trash talk, just one last look up at the crowd. A standing ovation, not for the home team, for the man who dismantled them. It was the loudest the building had been since the tribute video, but this time, it wasn't nostalgia, it was respect. Luka Doncic had walked into Dallas and put on an absolute masterclass. He scored 45, he exposed the front office, he silenced the critics, he ignited a fan base, and he buried a franchise in their own house. The Mavericks didn't just lose a game that night, they lost the last ounce of credibility they had left. Because this wasn't just Luka dominating, this was Luka Doncic humbling the Dallas Mavericks front office. And the final blow? It wasn't a buzzer beater, it was the reality check they'll never live down. By the time Luka Doncic boarded the team's bus that night, the echoes of Fire Nico were still probably bouncing around the American Airlines Center. He didn't say much in the post-game presser. He didn't have to. His performance had already said everything. But the aftermath, that's where the real damage began. For the Mavericks, this wasn't just a bad loss, it was a public unraveling. Across social media, NBA insiders, former players, and analysts alike hammered Dallas for what now looks like one of the most catastrophic trades in league history. And not just because Luka's stat line was outrageous, but because the game exposed a truth the Mavericks had tried to deny. You don't trade a generational talent in his prime, unless you want generational consequences. The numbers tell their own story. Since Luka's departure, Dallas has been treading water, scraping to stay alive in the play-in picture. The defensive identity they promised when acquiring Anthony Davis, it clearly evaporated. I mean, Luka torched them for 45. Luka's Lakers are surging, securing a top 6 playoff seed and riding high on the chemistry between Luka, LeBron, and the rest of the supporting cast. Luka's averaging 28 points, 8 rebounds, and 7.5 assists since arriving in LA. The team looks balanced, lethal, and laser-focused. Luka isn't playing like a man possessed, not angry, not emotional, just aware of how that Dallas front office treated him. They said he couldn't lead. They said he was lazy on defense and out of shape. They said he wasn't worth giving a supermax to build around for the long term. Every game since the trade has been a rebuttal, and Luka's return to Dallas, that was the closing argument. But the fallout isn't just on the court. According to reports, the Mavericks could lose tens of millions of dollars in the wake of this decision. Fans are turning away. Ticket sales are slipping. Sponsors are reportedly pulling out. The team's merchandise revenue, once buoyed by Luka jerseys and international fandom, is tanking. The soul of the franchise walked out the door the day they traded Luka Doncic. And on April 9, 2025, in front of 20,000 of his former believers, Luka came back not to rub it in, but to remind them what greatness looked like. He didn't talk trash, he didn't gloat, he just played the game better than anyone else on the court, and walked off with the win, the applause, and his legacy intact. Luka Doncic wasn't supposed to be the enemy in Dallas. He was supposed to be a legend. But now he's something else entirely, the ghost they'll never stop seeing. Because April 9th wasn't just a game, it was a warning shot. And Luka Doncic didn't just beat the Mavericks, he humbled them. Luka's return wasn't just a game, it was a reckoning. He reminded Dallas of the superstar they once had, a 26-year-old phenom who had already led them to 2 Western Conference Finals and an NBA Finals appearance. He didn't want to leave, he wasn't supposed to leave. But the Mavericks front office made their choice, and on April 9, 2025, Luka Doncic made them feel the weight of that decision. We all knew that Dallas had made a monumental mistake, but seeing what Luka did in his return to Dallas just made it even more clear. Nico, what was the rationale behind trading away a generational talent? Luka and the Lakers are gearing up for a deep playoff run, while the Mavericks are left to pick up the pieces, grappling with the consequences of a decision that may haunt them for a decade. Luka Doncic didn't just beat the Mavericks, he humbled them. And the scars from this night, they'll never fade. There are nights in the NBA that become more than just basketball. They become chapters in history. It truly felt Luka Doncic's return to Dallas was one of those nights. It wasn't about revenge. It wasn't even about proving people wrong. It was about truth. And the truth is this: the Dallas Mavericks fumbled a generational icon that meant so much to their franchise. And Luka made them feel every ounce of that mistake. He didn't come back with anger. He came back with precision, with poise, with brilliance. He turned boos into standing ovations, doubt into dominance, silence into shame. He walked into the arena that once raised him and buried the franchise that let him go. This wasn't just a superstar dropping 45 points. This was a young superstar reclaiming his legacy, on his terms, in his house, against the very people who said he wasn't enough. No highlight reel could capture the full weight of that night. No box score could tell the whole story. Because what Luka Doncic did wasn't just remarkable, it was unforgettable. He didn't ask for closure, he delivered a verdict. So now the basketball world watches as Luka carves a new path in LA, while Dallas is left to sit in the shadow of the decision they'll never live down. One man, one game, one unforgettable night. The night Luka Doncic humbled the Dallas Mavericks. And make no mistake, they'll never recover. If you made it this far, thanks for watching. And now we want to hear from you. Was this the worst trade in NBA history? Worse than Paul George for Shea and multiple firsts? Worse than KG and Paul Pierce to Brooklyn that then turned into the draft picks of Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown? Let us know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this breakdown, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss a story like this. We've got more deep dives, more drama, and more unforgettable NBA moments on the way. Until next time, don't fumble your franchise player.